Right, so we're gonna talk about how to import an height map real quick. I wanted to find a forested area. I usually use Terrain Party for this because it's free, although you can go to the marketplace and download some real world alpha brushes or height maps. For me, this is not a specific location, so I'll be fine even if I just sculpted it myself, but I'm gonna get some help. And I found this alternative website. There's not much, but it's a start. It's called motionforgepictures.com. Terrain Party is not working. I've checked on Reddit for multiple people. There is really big terrains with really big resolutions, but I am just going to stick with this Rolling Hills height map. Ridge throughout terrain could have been fun, but I don't want ridges. I just mainly looking for maybe some sort of rolling hills, just a little bit less flat. And this resolution will work fine for the area that I'm looking to build. So I just went ahead and created a landscape. And after I downloaded that PNG file, I basically imported my PNG file into it as a height map file and then just put import. We're not going to do that right now because we already imported it. Right off the bat, I moved my landscape with the gizmo to where I left that third party person player start block that was created. This is why I like to leave it there, because then it's giving me a center as to where I should build everything. And we can see, obviously, this will be enough. And if we're looking through, I can make these parts a little bit more, add more components, bring these up, and I can continuously edit it because the enable edit layers are on. Before you turn that on, you can't really edit something that you bring in or import, but you can see the edges of our PNG here. So we're gonna go ahead and close that. That's just basically for, I'm not gonna render that, that's just a reference for me to start from. And now I'm going to maybe smooth out some areas here. As you can see, it works pretty well because this is gonna be where I build the house. So I don't want too much of a noise here. And I am going to maybe put a little bit. As you can see, this is too much. So we can scale it down. And this is where you can even put alpha brushes to make some cool effects. I just want to make it so that it's not completely smooth, but just flatter. All right, we can go ahead and sculpt it down with the shift button. And flatten, maybe move this part a little bit up to make sure it's flat where we're building the house. Bring this down. Give it some erosion, give it some, whoop, the noise is a lot, we don't want that. We're gonna bring it down. And smooth it out. Just creating some randomness. Okay, so this is where I'm gonna build the house for now. And this area is gonna be a little bit flatter. Give it some noise. And we can change it as we wish afterwards. And again, we can add components. We can paint with our alpha brush and continue to basically edit our landscape according to our needs. So right off the bat, we're gonna get out of the landscape mode and start blocking our scene, at least the first part. So we can see, okay, how much more do we need to move the landscape? I'm thinking we're gonna need to move it a little bit on the Y. So we can get a little bit more coverage as we're looking through with our camera. We're gonna put maybe some more hills and trees over there, but cool. Bring it down, bring it up. Too much. Just blocking. And checking at our image once again, Unreal Inspiration. This is gonna be a little bit of a flat area, but we can imagine this part as a hill and come through the flatter area. So this will work out. Part of what I like to do once we're in here, go into the play mode and explore the location with our mannequin, because this is also gonna give us what the house size should be in the sense of scale according to everything else. Don't worry too much about not seeing off to the distance. We can cleverly disguise those areas with trees or other mountains, but this is a good scale for what we have to do for now. All right, so here's where I'm at right now. The steps that we have taken are downloading a free height map and creating our landscape. And I think for the trees, I'm gonna go with the Unreal's European oak forest assets. I might go with some pine trees and whatnot, but so far I could make these bigger and have them get that effect. And maybe put some of the dead ones, make these, you can change the seasons on this one, that because of the Megascan blueprint that comes with the Megascan assets. You can get that in the marketplace. But what we've done is I have basically started with nothing. In lighting, I've erased everything. And I never like to use HDRI because, you know, Unreal is really reality-based lighting. But in this case, I did not want to go with volumetric fogs, but I wanted to find some sort of creepy looking light so that I can art direct the sky a little bit. What I used is just the sunset ambient cube map. But how does it look like this? I just went inside this is in the engine content So it comes with your Unreal. I just played with the vibrance, saturation, hue, and I like to put the RGB curve up to 2, so it's much more contrasty. Like, this is what a 1 is. Think of it as linear versus, you know, some curve added to it. That's what I did. And the reason why I don't like HDR backdrop, because this is a blueprint inside of Unreal. You have to turn it on from your plugins. That comes with the sky geometry and the skylights. I like to usually put my own skylight and play around with it, and if I'm putting an HDRI, I will turn this off. But in this case, I said why the hell not, and I used the skylight within the HDRI. So my directional light, I wanted to use my knowledge of light and shadow from photography, and I wanted to create a little bit of longer shadows to give some sort of detail to our landscape, because if this is anywhere else, it's gonna get flatter, and I don't want it to like go completely sunset. I know in our, you know, references, this is maybe some sort of a dawn or dusk scene. We could get close to that. I just didn't want it to be super night-like. I want it to be some sort of like to get some sort of light from the side, so I can give it a little bit more shape. And, you know, then I go ahead and play around with my exponential high fog, just so I can get more light shafts, and we're gonna go for a very foggy scene. So my next step is gonna be to bring fog cards and create ground fog and rolling fog around, and not just in the distance, to art direct it more. So we're going for a little bit more photorealistic here, not stylized. So that's why most people like to use for especially stars and clouds, and, you know, like to get a darker, creepier scene with their old Unreal Engine's legacy Skysphere blueprint. I don't want to use that because you can art direct the sky stars on that one, but it just doesn't look super realistic, and it, as soon as you connect it to your directional light, it's gonna get a little bit harder to get a natural lighting scene. I'm trying to stay away from all the tricks as much as I can and try and get, you know, some people put 2 directional lights to get more fill light in their scene. I'm not gonna do that either. What I'm gonna do is, you know, once we build the house right here, we're gonna art direct some, you know, trees and whatnot, and in the back I think I'm just gonna fill it with the procedural tool, and in the front I'm going to add my, you know, manually add the trees. Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, the ground. What else I've done is I've created my own landscape material. You can do, because since I know this is gonna be a scene kind of sort of in the dark with art directed lights, you know, rectangular lights, point lights, I wasn't gonna need anything that's heavy, that has biomes or anything like that. Instead, I'm going to manually put them in the front myself, near the house. Obviously, this is just an inspiration, and we're not gonna go exactly with this. But yes, I think for the ground, for it to be simple, we're not, and it's gonna be a very focused scene, which is why I said, let me build and like put my cameras to where I think I'm going to be, so I don't really go and use a auto landscape material, so that like creates snow in the hills and rocks and all of that. Instead, I just sometimes default to using my own, and you know, you can really easily write an auto landscape material that's simple. For me, you can even use, for this example, I just went ahead and created a landscape blend material, and I brought a few assets from Quixel. Let's check it out. This is the master material. It's very simple. I just made, you know, material functions, nothing fancy, and I put placeholders for albedo, metalness, AO, and normals, and for tiling. And then I just put that into adjustments and output results. So instead of bringing in materials and saying, this is what I'm gonna connect, which you can do, I just created functions so I can easily just, in this material that I wrote, it's easily readable. There isn't 1,000 different things, and it's easily changeable when I create my material instance. Extra thing that I did is I turned on the runtime virtual texture support, because I would like to blend whatever I have from Megascans into my landscape ground. I wrote a couple of different trials and errors. I also did the same thing with RVT, height, distance, field meshes, but in this case I'm not really gonna need to displace the ground of the landscape, and it's gonna cost me a little bit more, so I'm okay with no tessellation on my ground, although I have created that in case I would need it. I created a height field mesh mat and everything, but I just went defaulted to simple RVT, world height and texture, and that way I put that into my landscape material. And let's see where it is. Then that way, you know, I can turn on all the layers, and actually Unreal 5.2 does this sometimes. I save some stuff and then it just defaults back to not saving it, which is annoying, and it's probably a bug that's gonna be fixed. But yeah, so basically I wrote a function for the RVT. There's a bunch of tutorials out there for it, to blend with any Megascan assets and your ground. Let me go lit. It's gonna be a little harder to see in this lighting, but let me put a point light right now just to show. I usually am a huge fan of rec lights, but yeah, you can see that the RVT blending is working. I could probably work on the tangents a little bit more in the math so it blends in a little bit better, but it's pretty cool. As you can see, it gets the texture of the ground. We're gonna erase the point lights. And like I said, going back to the lighting, this is just a quick recap of what I've done. And if you have any questions on how to do any of these, you can just let me know, and then I can make a separate tutorial on that. We went over the lighting right now and what works and what doesn't. And these are mostly personal preferences, but I will easily spend 8 to 10 hours to put this basing lighting together, because you know, and you can use the lighting mix inside of Unreal to kind of avoid going in to each of these and like adjust them separately. But yeah, I like to get a feel, get a mood, and we're not even done with lighting, because then we're gonna start adding, you know, the house lighting, the tree house lighting, the fire lighting, and I might cheat, you know, and add rec lights around. And that's how I even light my humans or meta humans. We're gonna think in terms of fill lights, backlights, and you know, just rim light type of thing. So we can get some rim light in some of our trees and bring them back out of the fog. And we can back off from the fog when we start adding more fog cards and localize the fog and push the fog towards more into the mountains where our procedural trees are going to be. All right, so let me know if you have any questions, or would you like to see one of those things that I've mentioned more in detail.